where if it's personalized, even just to a degree, it's personalized, people feel valued. People feel like, okay, this is a good experience. Just using the person's name. The name is magic.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Terrence Fox, Head of Innovation with iAdvise, and it's my absolute pleasure to be joined today by Mr. Disney, I'll call him, Dennis Snow, to talk through the Conversational Maturity Index and, of course, his perception of the toolset in building a generous and wonderful experience, excuse me. And we invited Dennis on naturally because there's a tremendous amount of synergy between what Disney has been able to create in its decades of existence and what I mean by that is the aura, the magic behind visiting Disney, the personalization, the authenticity of a Disney experience. But at a time, naturally, when so many people are going digital, brands are required to think about the experience they're providing, right? Consumers are hitting the websites more often than not as a first starting point. So we've invited Dennis on to take a dive into the Conversational Maturity Index, his understanding of creating an excellent experience, and actually talk through each of the 6 pillars in the index to define what he believes would be most impactful today. So Dennis, nice to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you as well.
So Dennis, let's get right into the meat of it.
Okay.
As known, there are 6 pillars to this index, and we've worked closely with Forrester on defining these and ensuring that they're meeting the demands of the 2021 consumer. But the first pillar is really all about the content, how you're engaging with your visitors,
Right.
the expertise, empathy, and authenticity. How have you seen that in your experience generate an impactful experience?
Well, your first pillar of quality, and the definition of it is expertise, empathy, and authenticity. That really strikes to the heart of my days at Disney. The place is massive, but the guests expect you to know everything, and it's impossible. There's no way that you can know the answer to every question that guests may ask, and sometimes they just challenge you anyway.
Right,
But the expectation was if you didn't know the answer, you knew how to find the answer out. And
right,
so that expertise was in terms of quality was critical. The empathy, people have spent their life savings on this trip to Disney World. I mean, it's no one would
Mm,
ever say Disney's a nonprofit organization. And
right, right.
to empathize that they're overwhelmed. They're going to try and pack everything into this condensed vacation, and to understand that they don't know everything that you know. And then the
Mm,
authenticity, the you want people to understand that there's a connection. There's a connection between you and them. And so
right.
that was trained into us. That was one of the, those things were just trained into us, that's a part of the experience. Certainly the rides and shows are great, and they've got to be great. But at the same time, the that experience through, the expertise, the empathy, and the authenticity, or, what you put under quality,
Mm.
are critical.
Yeah, and I've always been impressed about Disney's capacity to do this at scale, which is, coming to the next topic, right? The next pillar is about
Right.
scalability.
Yeah.
We talk about the park example. This is someone's life savings, possibly. This is someone coming and looking forward to a trip with you
Yeah.
all year. So to have that excellent experience is one big piece, but of course, scaling that up, how do
Yeah.
you possibly keep that level of consistency?
Yeah, I think the way they scale it is they keep it simple. That the way we interact with people, the way we interface with the guests is not rocket science. It's knowing what you're talking about, making it personal, having that connection. And
Mm,
then you can scale that across the entire organization. Anything that they put in place, any new things that they put in place, they've got to be able to scale it. They entertain tens of millions of people a year. The
Right.
property itself is twice the size of Manhattan. So you think
Mm,
about the scale of it. You can't just have things that apply to this particular Space Mountain and doesn't apply anywhere else. It's got to feel like a Disney experience, no matter where you are on the property and no matter who you're interacting with. So they're very focused on taking what the essence of the place and building it into everything so that it is scalable across the entire 47,000 acres of property that they have there.
yeah, and Dennis, I know, of course, you are a mastermind of a physical experience, right? And when I transfer this over to the digital experience, it's very simply tied to that omni-channel fluidity, right? Like you need to, which
Right.
is another pillar we'll get to in a moment, but you need to make sure, of course, that Space Mountain has the same experience as the entryway to the park.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
or a hotel,
right.
or a water park, any of the entities. So you look at the omni-channel experience in the contact center world. Well, there's an omni-channel experience at Disney World too, and it does include the contact center, of
Mm,
course, but it also includes when you're checking into the hotel, when you're boarding on an attraction, when you're asking a cast member directions on how to find something. Those are all the various channels through which we communicate with our guests.
mm.
And so it's got to be consistent across all of those channels. Again, what I said earlier and reinforce here, no matter where you are on the property, no matter who you're interacting with or how you're interacting, it should still feel like Disney. It should
Yeah.
still
So
feel like a Disney experience.
absolutely, I think that's a critical piece we're seeing with a lot of our own, people that begin engaging with iAdvise. That I've got one experience here, a different one here. It's very jarring and uncomfortable for our visitors, and creating that seamless single organism. I think
Yeah.
me and Genghis said in the past is critical. Uh,
Seamless is the right word.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so we've talked about the expertise. We've talked about scaling that expertise and authenticity and empathy, but now that we have that, how do you make people at a Disney park feel special? And what I'll do from what you share here, naturally, Dennis, is try to, of course, translate this over to the digital experience today.
Yeah. Well, this goes to the pillar of engagement and personalization, right? It's that pillar. And again, I remember from my days, when I would be boarding people on attractions, sometimes you only have seconds with them.
Yeah.
And you're also counting, how many people are getting on. When I was working at 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, each submarine held 40 people. So you had to count at the same time you were to make a personalized experience. And so a lot of it was just really simple things like making eye contact with them, smiling at them, giving them a little head nod. If they have
Mm.
something funny written on their t-shirt, making a comment. I saw one. I was out there not too long ago, and I saw a guy with a t-shirt it's my all-time favorite Disney t-shirt now. It said most expensive day ever. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that T-shirt because usually it's most magical day ever, but he had most
Right.
expensive day ever. But just making a comment on something like that and smiling, and the kids used to get their names stitched on the back of their Mickey Mouse ears, and as the child would walk by, and you're counting, as the child would walk by, say, "Hey, Bobby, how are you?" And it would just freak the
Mm.
kid out because how did he know who I was? But the parents know exactly what you did. So it was just those little moments of personalization. And I think the word, whether it's a contact center or it's Disney World or any other business, I think the word is presence. We
Mm.
have to be present. We can't process people through our system. People know when they're being processed. And it's
Right.
hard to feel that connection, to feel that loyalty factor when you've just been processed. Where if it's personalized, even just to a degree, it's personalized, people feel valued. People feel like, okay, this is a good experience. Just using the person's name. The name is magic, in the various ways you interact with them. But I think the key word to that personalization, that engagement and personalization, is we have to be present. We can't just process people. And that's not easy to do, because we get busy.
So many there, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Such a big audience.
You get busy and it's toward the end of the day and you're ready to go home, but at the
Right.
same time, that last guest that you're dealing with paid the same amount of money as the first guest that you dealt with that day and deserve to be treated with that
Mm.
engagement and that personalization.
I like your use of the word process or presence, excuse me, because I think when I translate that over to the digital experience that so many of our clients are working on honing and improving, you think about process, and there is times where that sort of robotic feel is beneficial on the digital side, right? You've got a basic need, you're looking for help, you get connected to a bot, right? Which obviously is very process oriented and has that feel. But as a human first solution, being I advise with the CMI and what we're focused on, you can imagine the importance, like you've said, of not having just that robotic like presence, right?
Right.
If you were standing in Disney as I'm going to dress you up as Goofy for this example, Dennis, but you weren't.
Is that good? Is that a comment on?
Yeah, no, it's meant to be a compliment.
Okay.
But if you had more of a robotic nature, or if you had that sort of human engagement, you can see the big difference. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
absolutely in line.
And when you're communicating people through an omni-channel process too, you can tell when it's personalized and you can tell when it's robotic.
Right.
No matter how that's happening, you can tell the difference. And that personalized experience just makes a huge difference. It just takes you up a notch in the eyes of the customer.
Absolutely. And here's one that I think will be interesting to get your perspective on. This should be the fifth because we have started talking about omni-channel, which is the sixth pillar. So we might not have
Hmm.
much else there, but the fifth channel is really focused on around making it easy on the consumer.
Right.
And obviously on the digital side, this is messaging, right? Their preferred medium and preferred means of communicating. But obviously, the benefit of removing the burden from your visitor, your consumer, and facilitating what they're looking for, or the best way of engaging with them, is just as important in the parks.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to make it easy to navigate the process, and make it easy for people. If you've been to Disney in the last few years, you've probably seen the magic bands that you get.
Mm,
And that magic band can be used for anything from opening up your hotel room door to purchasing merchandise to the fast pass to get on the attractions to entering the park, all designed to make it easy for the guests.
mm,
And one of the things when I'm consulting with organizations, one of the recommendations that I give and spend a lot of time talking about is removing frustrations. What are the things that frustrate your customers? And we know what they are. We know what those things are. When you're the company that actually does something about those frustrations, making things easier to use, you become a beacon of light in your industry because
right.
typically things are just so complicated you just want to scream. And when somebody makes it easy to do business with you, it becomes it's such a differentiator in the business world. So we put a lot of
Yeah.
focus on that at Disney World of how can we make what is really a very complicated place. I mean, it's huge and it's complicated. How do we make it easy to do business? Even things like, wait times, to be able to put it on a smartphone so that you can see what the wait times are at the various attractions so you can decide where you want to go to next. And all of those things all designed to say, let's make a complicated experience as easy as we can.
Yes, and then I can see that wristband would definitely help contribute to most expensive trip
Yes,
ever. That
yes, it makes it
application.
very easy for people to part with them. It's really easy to put that wristband up against a machine versus taking cash out of your wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine my daughter taking the wristband in no time. Absolutely. And of course, as we've mentioned, we've talked about the fluidity and omni-channel
Right.
experience. As I kind of touched on before, and this is the final pillar, I've always been very impressed with, Disney's web experience translated over to the physical experience. And it's the moment you step on that park, you're
Mhm.
somewhere different, right? You can feel
Right.
Disney throughout that presence, which I think is definitely admirable, right? It definitely makes it, as you say, magical.
Yeah, yeah, and the whole idea when let's take all 6 pillars now. Everything is designed so that at the end of your stay, no matter how long you've been at Disney, the end of your stay, as you're leaving, the thought that you have in mind is, "We can't wait to get back.
Right.
It was expensive. I don't have any money left,
Yeah.
but can't wait to get back." So you take your 6 pillars and you apply them over the course of everything, every touch point of the place, whether it's online, the web presence, whether it's the helplines, whatever it may be. You apply those 6 pillars across the whole experience, and the result is that feeling of, it was very expensive, but when can we schedule another vacation to come back? And
Yeah.
the interesting thing is, they are now, I'm not positive exactly what the repeat visitation is now, but it's somewhere in the area of 75%, which
Wow.
amazes me that when you're at Disney World, 75% of the people that you see have been there before.
Right. At that stage, it's simply about going home to work more to come back.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah. Put the kids to work.
yeah. That's, well, obviously, wildly impressive. And it was, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today to comb through the 6 pillars and the conversational maturity index. Of course, its mission is to help create that sort of magical, memorable experience Disney has mastered at the parks
Right.
online.
They don't get it right every time, but they get it right most of the time. They work really hard at it.
Right, which I think that's enough of a success, right? Pretty close to perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. Again, a pleasure to see you, and
Yeah.
I
My
hope to
pleasure.
drag you back onto one of these in the future.
I look forward to it.
All right, that's Dennis Snow, president of Snow and Associates. I've been calling him Mr. Disney. I don't assume he hates that yet, but it was a pleasure to have him join to comb through the conversational maturity index, and of course, creating a memorable experience digitally based on what we know from doing so physically. Thank you all.